Captain Jake Sullivan stood on the bridge of the Pioneer's Edge, watching the massive planet grow larger through the view screen. The world below was silver and blue, with perfect geometric cities that looked like they were drawn with a ruler. Everything was too neat, too perfect. It made Jake feel uneasy. "Captain, we're getting a message from the Zephyrians," said Communication Officer Ben Rodriguez. His voice was tight with nervousness. This was humanity's first real meeting with an alien species that was actually older and smarter than them. "Put it on screen," Jake said. The screen flickered, and a tall, thin figure appeared. The Zephyrian looked almost human, but not quite. Its skin was pale silver, and its eyes were too large and too bright. When it spoke, its voice was perfectly clear, with no accent at all. "Greetings, human vessel. I am Coordinator Vex Prime 977. We have been expecting you. Please follow the navigation path we are sending to your ship's computer. Do not deviate from this path." Jake looked at his pilot, Amy Carter. She was already frowning at her controls. "Captain, they're sending us a flight path that's weird. It's perfect, but it takes us through 17 different waypoints just to land. A straight line would be much faster." "Follow their path," Jake said. "We're guests here." Dr. Lisa Martinez, the ship's chief scientist, was practically bouncing with excitement. "Captain, do you realize what this means? The Zephyrians have been around for over 3 million years. They've had faster-than-light travel for longer than humans have existed. They've solved every problem, eliminated every inefficiency. We could learn so much from them." Jake wasn't so sure. In his experience, things that seemed too good to be true usually were. But this was a diplomatic mission, and Earth's leaders wanted to make a good impression. As they followed the complex flight path, Jake noticed something odd. Every ship around them was moving in perfect formation. There was no chaos, no randomness. Everything moved like a giant machine, with each part knowing exactly where it was supposed to be. "It's beautiful," Lisa whispered. "It's creepy," muttered Amy under her breath. They landed at a spaceport that looked like it was built by computers. Every line was straight. Every curve was perfect. There were no signs of wear, no scratches, no evidence that real people used this place. It was like a picture from a textbook. The Zephyrian delegation was waiting for them at the bottom of the ship's ramp. There were 5 of them, all tall and thin, all wearing the same silver clothing. They stood in a perfect line, perfectly spaced. Apart. "Welcome to Zephyria Prime," said Coordinator Vex Prime 977. "We are pleased to meet representatives of the human species. We have studied your people and find you ... interesting." The way it said "interesting" made Jake's skin crawl. It was the same tone a scientist might use when talking about a strange bug. "We're honored to be here," Jake said, trying to sound diplomatic. "We're hoping this is the beginning of a long friendship between our species." "Friendship," the Zephyrian repeated, as if it was testing the word. "Yes, we have analyzed this concept. We understand that humans form emotional attachments based on shared experiences and mutual benefit. We are curious about this behavior." Lisa stepped forward. "We're curious about you, too. Your technology, your society, your achievements. Earth scientists have so many questions." "Excellent," said Vex-Prime-9-7-7. "We have prepared a presentation for you. We believe you will find our gift to humanity most beneficial." They were led through the perfect city to a building that looked like a crystal mountain. Inside, everything was white and clean and quiet. The Zephyrians moved through the halls like ghosts, making no noise, leaving no trace. In a large room filled with floating screens and complex diagrams, the Zephyrians began their presentation. The lead coordinator waved its hand, and a 3-dimensional model appeared in the air. "This is our gift to humanity," it said. "A perfect city design." Jake stared at the model. It was impressive, he had to admit. The city was laid out in perfect hexagons, with buildings that seemed to flow together like water. Everything was connected by moving walkways and transport tubes. Every resource was recycled. Every space was used efficiently. This city can house 10 million humans, the coordinator continued. It provides optimal nutrition, optimal shelter, optimal recreation, and optimal productivity. Every human need has been calculated and provided for with mathematical precision. It's incredible, Lisa breathed. The calculations took our computers 0.003 seconds to complete, said another Zephyrian. We have eliminated all waste, all inefficiency, all randomness. Your species will be much happier living in such organized conditions. Jake studied the model more carefully. Something bothered him about it, but he couldn't put his finger on what it was. The city was perfect, but it felt empty somehow. We expect you to implement this design on your colony worlds immediately, the coordinator said. It will improve human efficiency by 847%. That's very generous, Jake said. Carefully. But we'd need to study the plans, show them to our engineers, get approval from Earth's government, ... Approval? The Zephyrian sounded confused, but the design is mathematically perfect. What is there to approve? Well, humans like to understand things before they commit to them, Jake explained. We have this habit of wanting to know how things work. The Zephyrians exchanged looks. At least, Jake thought they did. It was hard to tell with their alien faces. Curious, said Vex Prime 977. We have observed this behavior in your species. You often choose suboptimal solutions simply because you understand them better than optimal ones. We find this ... inefficient. Maybe, Jake said. But it's how we are. Indeed, the coordinator said. This is why we requested this meeting. We are fascinated by your species' ability to function despite such obvious logical defects. We wish to study you further. Jake felt his team tense up behind him. Being called defective wasn't exactly the diplomatic welcome they'd been hoping for. We prefer to think of it as being adaptable, Lisa said diplomatically. Adaptable, the Zephyrian repeated. Another curious concept. We achieved perfect adaptation. 2.7 million years ago. We no longer require this ability. As the presentation continued, Jake found himself growing more and more uncomfortable. The Zephyrians weren't trying to be insulting, but they clearly saw humans as primitive, inefficient, and flawed. They talked about fixing humanity's problems like they were debugging a computer program. The worst part was, Jake wasn't sure they were wrong. The city design was incredible. Their technology was beyond anything humans had imagined. They had eliminated war, poverty, disease, and inefficiency. But something was missing. Jake couldn't shake the feeling that in all their perfection, the Zephyrians had lost something important. Something human. He just didn't know what it was yet. Engineer Ryan Brooks rubbed his tired eyes as he studied the Zephyrian city plans for the third time. It was late in the ship's night cycle, but he couldn't sleep. Something about the perfect design kept bothering him. Computer, display section. 7 Alpha, he said. The holographic city appeared in front of him, showing a residential district. Every building was the same height, the same color, the same shape. The streets formed perfect grids, with exactly the right amount of space for optimal traffic flow. It was beautiful in a cold, mathematical way. But where were the corner stores? The little shops that sold things people didn't know they needed? Where were the parks that weren't planned? The spaces where kids could play without adult supervision? Ryan, you're still up? Amy Carter walked into the engineering section, carrying 2 cups of coffee. Thanks, Ryan said, taking one of the cups. I can't figure out what's wrong with this city design. Amy studied the hologram. It's perfect. That's the problem, Ryan said. It's too perfect. Look at this residential area. Every apartment is exactly the same size, designed for the optimal number of people. But what if someone wants a bigger kitchen? What if they want to knock down a wall to make more space? I guess they don't, Amy said. The Zephyrians probably calculated the perfect kitchen size. But what if they're wrong? Ryan asked. What if the perfect kitchen for their calculations isn't perfect for the person who has to cook in it? The next morning, Ryan brought his concerns to the daily meeting with the Zephyrians. The alien delegation listened politely as he explained his questions about the city design. We do not understand, said Coordinator Vex Prime 977. The design is mathematically optimal. Why would humans require modifications? Well, Ryan said, humans are all different. Some people like to cook, some don't. Some people have big families, some live alone. Some people like quiet, some like noise. The city design assumes everyone is the same. But they are the same, another Zephyrian said. All humans require the same basic needs: food, shelter, security, reproduction, recreation. We have provided all of these in optimal quantities. It's not about quantities, Ryan tried to explain. It's about choice, about having the freedom to make your own space your own way. The Zephyrians were quiet for a long moment. Finally, the coordinator spoke. You wish to make your environment less efficient for emotional reasons. I guess, yeah. This is illogical. Ryan felt his frustration growing. Maybe it is, but it's human. Later that day, Amy tried a different approach. She asked the Zephyrians to join her in the ship's mess hall for lunch. The aliens looked uncomfortable in the casual space, with its mismatched chairs and tables where the crew had carved their initials. This is where we eat, Amy said. But it's also where we play cards, where we argue about sports, where we celebrate birthdays. The designers didn't plan for all of that, but it happened anyway. Inefficient, observed one of the Zephyrians. You could eat faster in individual meal pods. Sure, Amy said. But then I wouldn't have learned that Rodriguez cheats at poker, or that Lisa makes terrible jokes when she's tired, or that the captain always lets other people win at arm wrestling. This information serves no practical purpose, the Zephyrian sighed. It does to us, Amy replied. It's how we become friends. It's how we learn to trust each other. She told them about her grandmother's house, how the kitchen had become the heart of the home, even though it was too small and poorly designed. Everyone always ended up in that kitchen, she said, not because it was efficient, but because it felt right. Because that's where Grandma was, where the good smells came from, where the family stories got told. The Zephyrians listened, but Amy could see they didn't understand. They kept asking questions about square footage and traffic flow, missing the point entirely. Ben Rodriguez decided to try showing them human art. He brought out his collection of music, paintings, and books, hoping to demonstrate that humans valued beauty and emotion, not just efficiency. This is one of our greatest composers, he said, playing Beethoven's Ninth Symphony. It's over 200 years old, and people still listen to it. The Zephyrians analyzed the music with their devices, measuring frequencies and mathematical patterns. Within minutes, they had created what they called an improved version. We have eliminated the inefficiencies, they announced proudly. This version is 23.7% more mathematically perfect. Ben listened to their version and felt his heart sink. Technically, it was flawless. Every note was in the perfect place. Every rhythm was precisely calculated. But it was empty, lifeless, like a beautiful corpse. You've made it perfect, he said quietly. But you've killed it. We do not understand. The mathematical improvements are clearly superior. Music isn't just mathematics, Ben tried to explain. It's about emotion, about the way it makes you feel. Beethoven wrote this when he was going deaf. He put his pain and his hope into the music. Your version is perfect, but it doesn't have any soul. The Zephyrians recorded this as another example of human inefficiency preference. Dr. Martinez tried to bridge the gap with science. She showed them human research methods, explaining how humans often made discoveries by accident, by following hunches, by trying things that shouldn't work. We call it serendipity, she said. Some of our greatest discoveries happened when we were looking for something else entirely. This is wasteful, the Zephyrians said. We eliminated random research 1.8 million years ago. We now predict all discoveries using mathematical models. But don't you ever get surprised? Lisa asked. Don't you ever find something you weren't looking for? Surprises are inefficient, they replied. We have eliminated the need for them. As the days passed, the cultural exchange became more and more frustrating. The humans tried to explain concepts like intuition, spontaneity, and personal preference. The Zephyrians tried to fix these concepts by making them more logical. When Amy mentioned that she liked to take different routes to work just for variety, the Zephyrians created an optimal route variation schedule. When Ryan talked about the satisfaction of fixing something with improvised tools, they designed better tools that would eliminate the need for improvisation. You're missing the point, Jake said during one particularly frustrating meeting. We don't want to eliminate these things. We like them. They're part of what makes us human. But they make you inefficient, the coordinator said. We are trying to help you become better. Better at what? Jake asked. Being more like you? Yes, we have achieved perfection. We wish to share this gift with you. Jake looked around the sterile meeting room at the perfect aliens who had solved every problem and eliminated every surprise. He thought about his grandmother's kitchen that Amy had described, about the music that Ben loved, about the satisfaction Ryan got from fixing things the hard way. What if we don't want to be perfect? He asked. The Zephyrians stared at him in complete silence. It was the first time Jake had seen them look genuinely confused. We do not understand, Vex Prime 977 said finally. Why would any species choose to remain imperfect? Maybe, Jake said slowly, because our imperfections are what make us who we are. The meeting ended with both sides more confused than when they started. The Zephyrians returned to their perfect city to analyze the puzzling human responses. The humans returned to their ship, feeling like they had failed to communicate something important. They think we're broken, Amy said sadly. Maybe we are, Ryan said. Maybe they're right. Maybe we would be happier if we were more logical, more efficient. Would you want to be like them? Ben asked. Ryan thought about it. No, he said finally. I wouldn't. I like being human, messy as it is, even if it's inefficient. Especially because it's inefficient. Outside the ship, the perfect city hummed, with perfect efficiency. And somewhere in that perfection, the Zephyrians were trying to calculate how to fix the strange, broken humans who seemed to prefer being imperfect. Neither side realized that soon they would face a crisis that would test the value of both perfection and imperfection in ways they never expected. The alarm on the Pioneer's Edge started screaming at 0347 hours ship time. Jake was out of bed and running toward the bridge before he was fully awake. Emergency alarms meant only one thing. Someone was in serious trouble. Report, he shouted as he burst onto the bridge. Captain, we're getting a distress signal from New Haven Colony, Ben Rodriguez said, his face pale. There's an asteroid heading straight for them. Impact in 18 hours. Jake's blood turned to ice. New Haven was home to 3 million people, including families, children, elderly colonists who had spent their whole lives building a new world. How big? He asked. 12 kilometers wide, Amy said from her station. moving at 43,000 kilometers per hour. If it hits, it'll wipe out everything on the planet. Dr. Martinez was already running calculations on her screen. The impact will be like 1,000 nuclear bombs going off at once. The planet won't be livable for decades. Are there any ships in the area? Jake asked. 2 cargo haulers and a mining ship, Ben replied. Not nearly enough to evacuate everyone. Jake turned to the Zephyrian delegation, who had arrived on the bridge looking as calm as always. Coordinator, we need your help. Your ships are fast and powerful. Can you help evacuate the colony? Vex Prime 977's large eyes blinked slowly. We will analyze the situation, it said. Please provide all relevant data. The Zephyrians stood perfectly still for several minutes, their eyes glowing slightly as they processed information. Finally, the coordinator spoke. We have completed our analysis. The optimal solution is a systematic evacuation of the colony. We will dispatch our transport fleet immediately. Thank you, Jake said, relief flooding through him. How long will it take? 14 days, 7 hours, and 16 minutes, the coordinator replied. We can save 99.7% of the population. Jake stared at the alien. 14 days? The asteroid hits in 18 hours. Correct. This is why we can only save 99.7%. The remaining 0.3% represents those who will be lost due to the time constraint. That's 9,000 people, Lisa said quietly. Yes, it is regrettable, but it is the optimal solution given the circumstances. Jake felt anger rising in his chest. There has to be another way. We have analyzed all possibilities, the coordinator said. This is the most efficient approach. What about deflecting the asteroid? Ryan asked. He had been quietly studying the sensor data. If we could change its course, even slightly, it would miss the planet. We analyzed that option, another Zephyrian said. The asteroid is too massive and moving too fast. It would require 847 times more energy than any of our ships can generate. What about explosives? Asked Steve Adams, a ship's mechanic. He had been listening from the back of the bridge. We could blow it apart. Inefficient, the coordinator replied. The fragments would still impact the planet, causing widespread destruction. But not total destruction, Steve argued. Some people would survive. The survival rate would be only 23.6%, the Zephyrian said. Our evacuation plan saves 99.7%. It is clearly superior. Your evacuation plan saves 99.7% of the people who are alive in 14 days, Jake said. But everyone dies in 18 hours. The mathematics are clear, the coordinator said. We will implement the evacuation plan. What if we don't want to wait 14 days? Amy asked. What if we want to try something else? The Zephyrians looked at each other with what might have been confusion. You wish to implement a suboptimal solution? We wish to try a solution that might work in the time we have, Jake said. But the probability of success is low. Low isn't zero, Steve sighed. And zero is what we get if we do nothing for 18 hours. Jake turned to his crew. What do you think? Do we wait for the Zephyrians' perfect plan, or do we try something crazy? Crazy, Amy said immediately. Definitely crazy, Ryan agreed. I vote for crazy too, said Ben. Dr. Martinez hesitated. The Zephyrian plan is scientifically sound. The probability of success is much higher. But it takes too long, Jake said. Sometimes good enough right now is better than perfect later. That is illogical, the coordinator said. Maybe, Jake replied, but it's human. The Zephyrians withdrew to their section of the ship to begin their evacuation calculations. The humans gathered in the mess hall to come up with their own plan. Okay, Jake said. What do we have to work with? The colony has 3 industrial mining ships, Steve said. They're equipped with fusion charges for breaking up asteroids. How big are the charges? Ryan asked. Big enough to crack a mountain, Steve replied. But probably not big enough to destroy a 12-kilometer asteroid. What if we don't try to destroy it? Amy suggested. What if we just tried to nudge it off course? It would take incredible precision, Lisa said. We'd have to hit it at exactly the right angle, with exactly the right force, at exactly the right time. And we'd have to do it fast, Ben added. We have maybe 12 hours to set it up. The Zephyrians are right, Lisa said. The chances of success are very low. But if it works, everyone lives, Jake said. If it doesn't work, we're no worse off than we are now. Actually, we'd be worse off, Lisa pointed out. If we waste time trying to deflect the asteroid and fail, we won't have time to evacuate anyone. So we do both, Jake decided. We try to deflect the asteroid while the Zephyrians start their evacuation. If our plan works, great. If not, they save who they can. The coordinator won't like that, Ben said. The coordinator doesn't have to like it, Jake replied. He just has to accept it. When Jake presented this plan to the Zephyrians, they were horrified. You wish to attempt a solution with a 12.3% chance of success, while simultaneously implementing a solution with a 99.7% chance of success, the coordinator asked. Yes, this is wasteful. The resources used for the deflection attempt could be used to improve the evacuation efficiency. How much could you improve it? Jake asked. By 0.02%. So you'd save 60 more people? Correct. And if our deflection works, we save 3 million people. But the probability is only 12.3%. I'll take those odds, Jake said. Zephyrian stared at him in silence. Finally, the coordinator spoke. We do not understand your decision-making process. You don't have to understand it, Jake said. You just have to let us try. We will not assist with the deflection attempt. We're not asking you to. Just start your evacuation and let us do our thing. The Zephyrians agreed, though they clearly thought the humans were making a terrible mistake. They began dispatching their perfect evacuation fleet. While the humans raced to implement their imperfect plan, Steve worked with the mining ships to position the fusion charges. Amy calculated approach vectors that made no sense on paper but felt right in her gut. Ryan jury-rigged detonation systems that violated every safety protocol but might actually work. This is insane, Lisa said as she watched the preparations. We're using mining equipment to perform precision surgery on a space rock the size of a mountain. Insane is our specialty, Steve replied, checking the connections on a fusion charge. The Zephyrians do perfect. We do desperate. What if we're wrong? Lisa asked. What if the Zephyrians are right, and we should stick to proven methods? Then we'll find out in about 6 hours, Jake said. But I'd rather fail trying something that might work than succeed at something that definitely won't work fast enough. The Zephyrians monitored the human preparations with growing confusion. Every human decision seemed to violate basic principles of efficiency and logic. Yet somehow, the chaotic plan was coming together. They are using mining charges designed for iron ore on a nickel-iron asteroid, one Zephyrian observed. The metallurgy is completely wrong. They are detonating the charges manually instead of using computer control, said another. The timing will be imprecise. Their approach vector ignores 3 separate gravitational anomalies, added a third. And yet, the coordinator said slowly, their plan might actually work. The other Zephyrians looked at their leader in surprise. But the mathematical models show. The mathematical models assume optimal conditions, the coordinator interrupted. But these are not optimal conditions. These are desperate conditions. And perhaps desperate conditions require desperate solutions. With 4 hours until impact, the human plan was as ready as it would ever be. 3 mining ships were positioned around the asteroid, loaded with fusion charges and crewed by volunteers who knew they might not survive the mission. "Are you sure about this?" Jake asked Steve over the comm. "Hell no," Steve replied. "But I'm sure about trying." The Zephyrians watched in silence as the humans prepared to implement their impossible plan. For the first time in millions of years, they were about to witness something they had never seen before. Intelligent beings choosing an imperfect solution over a perfect one, not because they had to, but because they believed it was right. Countdown began. 3 minutes to detonation. 2 minutes. 1 minute. And in the depths of space, a desperate plan born of human stubbornness and hope was about to collide with the cold mathematics of physics. The fusion charges exploded in perfect sequence. 3 brilliant flashes of light that briefly turned the asteroid's surface into a miniature sun. For a moment, everyone held their breath, watching the sensors, waiting to see if the impossible had happened. Did it work? Jake asked, his voice tight with tension. Amy studied her navigation display, recalculating the asteroid's trajectory. Her face fell. No, it's still on course for New Haven. We knocked it off track by maybe 50 kilometers, but that's not enough. Damn, Steve muttered over the comm. The charges weren't big enough. We needed more power. The approach is still valid, Ryan said, studying the data. We just need another push. With what? Jake asked. We used all the fusion charges. We use everything else, Steve said. Mining ships, cargo haulers, whatever we can get our hands on. We ram it. The Zephyrians, who had been silently observing, finally spoke. This is suicide. The mass differential makes collision ineffective. Maybe, Jake said. But it's what? We have. What followed was the most desperate and chaotic rescue operation in human history. The mining ships, their fusion charges spent, turned themselves into battering rams. The cargo haulers jettisoned their loads and used their empty hulls as projectiles. Even the Pioneer's Edge prepared to make a ramming run. Captain, this is crazy, Dr. Martinez said. We're throwing ourselves at a mountain. Sometimes crazy is all you've got, Jake replied. Kate Thompson, the ship's navigator, was plotting collision courses that defied conventional wisdom. I'm not following standard approach vectors, she told Jake. I'm going with what feels right. Feels right? One of the Zephyrians asked. How can mathematical calculations feel correct or incorrect? They can't, Kate said, but navigation can. I've been flying for 20 years. Sometimes the computer gives you the right answer, and sometimes your gut does. The first mining ship, the Hard Luck, made its collision run. Captain Pete Morris, a grizzled veteran who had spent his life breaking rocks, aimed his ship at what he called the asteroid's sweet spot, a section that looked no different from any other to the Zephyrians, but somehow seemed right to his experienced eye. This is for my grandkids on New Haven, he said over the comm, and drove his ship straight into the asteroid at maximum velocity. The impact sent shockwaves through the rock, but the asteroid kept coming. Trajectory change, 0.003 degrees, Amy reported. Still not enough. The second mining ship, the Stubborn Mule, followed suit. Captain Sarah Kim used her ship's mining arms to grab onto the asteroid's surface before detonating her ship's reactor. The explosion carved a crater the size of a city block, but the asteroid barely shuddered. This isn't working, Lisa said. We're not making enough of a difference. Then we make bigger differences, Steve said. He was aboard the cargo hauler Big Betty, which had been hastily converted into a massive bomb. I'm going to try something the Zephyrians will really hate. What's that? Jake asked. I'm going to break the rules. Steve's plan was insane, even by human standards. Instead of ramming the asteroid head-on, he planned to use the cargo ship's damaged hull as a shaped charge, focusing the explosion in a direction that would create maximum lateral force. The problem was, it required manually overriding every safety system on the ship. "Steve, that's suicide," Amy said. "Maybe," Steve replied, "but I'm not planning to die today." What Steve did next would be talked about in engineering schools for decades. He used cargo containers as improvised rocket boosters, turning a civilian ship into a guided missile. He rerouted the ship's power systems to overload the reactor in a controlled explosion. He even used the ship's artificial gravity generators to create a gravitational kick that would add force to the impact. "This is impossible," the Zephyrian said, watching Steve's jury-rigged systems. "Those modifications should not function." "They shouldn't," Ryan agreed, "but they do. Sometimes impossible things work because nobody told them they couldn't." Steve's explosion was spectacular. The cargo ship hit the asteroid and detonated like a small nuclear weapon, sending debris flying in all directions. The force was directed exactly where Steve had calculated it would do the most good. "Trajectory change, 0.01 degrees, Amy reported. "Better, but still not enough." More ships followed. The passenger liner, New Dreams, had been evacuated and turned into a massive projectile. Captain Linda Ross, a former military pilot, used the ship's atmospheric entry thrusters to create a spiral approach that maximized impact force. "I'm going to hit this rock so hard, it'll change its mind about where it's going," she said, and proved as good as her word. Each impact moved the asteroid a little more. Each explosion pushed it a little farther off course. The Zephyrians watched in amazement as the humans turned their entire fleet into weapons, using every trick, every shortcut, every desperate measure they could think of. "They are destroying billions of credits worth of equipment," one Zephyrian observed. "To save 3 million lives," another replied. "The mathematics do not support this exchange." "Human mathematics are different from ours," the coordinator said quietly. Dr. Chris Nelson, the ship's doctor, found himself in the unusual position of rigging medical equipment to create explosions. "I spent my whole career saving lives," he said as he wired defibrillators to create shaped charges. "Now I'm using my equipment to blow things up." There's some irony there. The improvised weapons worked better than anyone had expected. The asteroid's course began to change more dramatically with each impact. But time was running out. "We need one more big push," Kate said, studying the trajectory. "Something with real mass behind it." "The mining platform," Amy suggested. "It's the biggest thing in the system." The mining platform, Iron Mountain, was a massive structure designed to process entire asteroids. It had been abandoned when the evacuation order came, but its automated systems were still running. Getting it to the asteroid and convincing it to ram the rock would require someone to go aboard and manually override the computer systems. "I'll do it," Ryan volunteered. "No," Jake said. "I will." "Captain, you're needed on the bridge," Ryan argued. "The bridge can run without me for a few hours," Jake replied. "But this job needs someone who can think on their feet, make decisions without consulting a manual, and improvise when things go wrong." "That describes all of us," Ryan said. "Exactly." Jake smiled grimly. "That's why we're going to win." Jake took a shuttle to the mining platform, leaving Amy in command of the Pioneer's Edge. The platform was a maze of machinery, conveyor belts, and processing equipment, all designed to reduce asteroids to manageable chunks. Jake had to figure out how to turn it into a weapon. "The platform's mass is 12,000 tons, he reported. "If I can get it moving fast enough, it should do the trick." "How fast is fast enough?" Amy asked. "Faster than it was designed to go," Jake replied. What followed was a masterpiece of human engineering improvisation. Jake used the platform's ore processing systems to create thrust, turning rock crushers into rocket nozzles. He overloaded the fusion reactors that powered the mining lasers, redirecting all that energy into the platform's maneuvering thrusters. Jake, those systems aren't designed to handle that much power, Ryan warned over the comm. I know, Jake replied, watching. Sparks fly from overloaded circuits. But they don't know that. The Zephyrians monitored Jake's work with growing amazement. Every modification he made violated basic engineering principles. The power flows were inefficient, the structural stresses were dangerous, and the whole system should have exploded within minutes, but it didn't explode. It worked. How is this possible? One Zephyrian asked. The failure probability is 99.97%. Maybe, the coordinator replied. But humans seem to specialize in achieving the impossible 0.03%. Jake managed to get the mining platform moving faster than it had ever moved before. Alarms screamed throughout the structure as systems redlined and safety protocols were ignored. But the massive platform accelerated toward the asteroid like a 12,000-ton bullet. Impact in 30 seconds, Jake reported. I'm getting off this thing. He sprinted through the shaking platform toward the escape pods, dodging falling debris and sparking electrical systems. Behind him, the overloaded reactors were building toward a catastrophic overload that would turn the entire platform into a massive bomb. He made it to an escape pod with seconds to spare, launching clear of the platform just as it slammed into the asteroid. The impact was tremendous. The platform's reactors exploded on contact, adding nuclear fire to the collision. The asteroid shuddered, cracked, and began to tumble. Trajectory change, Amy shouted over the comm. 2.7 degrees. It's going to miss the planet. Cheers erupted from every human ship in the system. They had done it. The impossible, inefficient, completely insane plan had actually worked. The Zephyrians were silent for a long moment. Finally, Coordinator Vex Prime 977 spoke. We do not understand how this was possible, it said. Our calculations indicated a 12.3% chance of success. Yet you succeeded. Sometimes, Jake said as his shuttle returned to the Pioneer's edge, the calculations are wrong. Calculations cannot be wrong, the coordinator replied. They are based on mathematical principles. Mathematical principles assume logical behavior, Amy said. But we're not logical. We're human. The aftermath of the 3 days after the asteroid crisis, the Zephyrian delegation requested another meeting. This time, they came to the human ship instead of asking the humans to visit their perfect city. It was a small change, but Jake noticed it. Coordinator Vex Prime 977 looked different somehow. Its perfect posture was slightly less rigid, and its large eyes seemed more curious. It studied the mess hall where they met, taking in the mismatched furniture, the scratched tables, the coffee stains that the cleaning crew never quite managed to remove. We have been analyzing the events of the past 72 hours, the coordinator said. Our calculations indicate that your plan should have failed. But it didn't, Jake replied. No, it did not. This presents us with a problem. Dr. Martinez leaned forward. What kind of problem? Our entire civilization is based on mathematical optimization, the coordinator explained. For 2.7 million years, we have improved our society by eliminating inefficiencies. We have perfect cities, perfect transportation, perfect resource distribution. We have solved every problem through logical analysis. That sounds pretty good, Amy said. We believed so as well, the coordinator replied. But your success has forced us to reconsider. You accomplished something that our mathematics said was impossible. This suggests that our mathematics may be incomplete. The admission clearly cost the Zephyrian effort to make. For a species that had built their entire existence on logical perfection, acknowledging that their logic might be flawed was like admitting their whole worldview was wrong. Maybe your math isn't incomplete, Ryan suggested. Maybe it's just different from ours. Explain. Ryan thought for a moment. Your math is based on perfection, on finding the optimal solution. But our math includes things like acceptable risk, good enough solutions, and the value of trying something even if it might not work. This is illogical. Yeah, probably, Ryan agreed, but it's also practical. Ben Rodriguez pulled out his music player. Mind if I try something? He asked. When the coordinator nodded, Ben played the original Beethoven's Ninth Symphony. You have heard this before, the coordinator said. We created an improved version that was mathematically superior. Right, Ben said. But listen to this part. He skipped to a section where the music became wild and emotional, where Beethoven had broken his own rules to create something powerful. A computer would never write this passage. It's not mathematically perfect. The rhythm is irregular, the harmonies are harsh, and it doesn't follow the established pattern. Correct. These are inefficiencies. But they're also what makes it beautiful, Ben continued. Beethoven wasn't trying to write perfect music. He was trying to write music that expressed what he felt. Your improved version fixed all the inefficiencies, but it also removed all the humanity. The coordinator was quiet for a long time. You are suggesting that inefficiency has value? We're suggesting that perfection isn't always the goal, Jake said. Sometimes the goal is just to make something work, or to express something true, or to help people, even if the method isn't optimal. Dr. Martinez showed the Zephyrians some human research papers. Look at how we made our scientific discoveries. She said, penicillin was discovered by accident when a lab got contaminated. The microwave oven was invented when a scientist was working on radar and noticed his chocolate bar had melted. Velcro was inspired by burr seeds sticking to a dog's fur. These discoveries were not planned? None of them, Lisa confirmed. We call it serendipity. Sometimes the best discoveries come from happy accidents, from being curious about unexpected results, from following hunches that can't be mathematically justified. But this is wasteful, one of the other Zephyrians protested. Think of all the time spent on research that leads nowhere. True, Lisa admitted. But think of all the discoveries we'd miss if we only looked for what we expected to find. Amy told them about her navigation work during the asteroid crisis. When I was plotting collision courses, I didn't just use the computer calculations. I used my experience, my intuition, my feel for how ships move in space. The computer gave me the mathematically optimal approach, but my gut told me there was a better way. How can biological intuition be superior to mathematical calculation? The coordinator asked. Because biological intuition includes things that can't be calculated, Amy replied. Experience, pattern recognition, emotional intelligence, the ability to adapt when conditions change. A computer can tell you the perfect solution for the conditions you programmed into it, but real life is messier than any program. The Zephyrians exchanged looks. We eliminated intuition from our species 1.3 million years ago, one of them said. We determined it was inefficient. What did you replace it with? Kate asked. More processing power. Better calculations. Perfect logic. And how's that working? Out for you? Steve asked bluntly. The coordinator considered this. Until recently, we believed it was working perfectly. But your success suggests we may have eliminated something important along with the inefficiency. What made you decide to study us in the first place? Jake asked. You were an anomaly, the coordinator replied. A species that achieved faster than light travel despite obvious logical deficiencies. According to our models, you should have destroyed yourselves long before reaching technological maturity. Maybe we almost did, Jake said. We've had wars, pollution, social problems, political conflicts. We've made a lot of mistakes. Yes, We observed this. It confirmed our assessment, that you were inefficient. But we learned from our mistakes, Jake continued. We adapted. We found solutions that weren't perfect, but were good enough to keep us going. And sometimes, those imperfect solutions led us to discoveries we never would have made if we'd stayed on the safe, logical path. Dr. Martinez brought up images of human cities on the view screen. Unlike the perfect geometric patterns of Zephyrian architecture, human cities were chaotic, organic, full of unexpected spaces and unplanned developments. Your cities are inefficient, the coordinator observed. Probably, Lisa agreed. But they're also alive. People make them their own. They adapt them to their needs. They create communities in ways that can't be planned or calculated. We could design better cities for you, the coordinator offered. You did, Ryan said. Remember? The perfect city design you showed us. It was mathematically optimal, but you rejected it. Not rejected, Ryan corrected. We need our cities to have room for mistakes, for changes, for things we haven't thought of yet. Your perfect city was designed for perfect people, but we're not perfect people. And you do not wish to become perfect? Jake laughed. Do you know what happens to perfect things? They stop growing. They stop learning. They stop adapting. Perfect is the end of the story. But imperfect means flawed, the coordinator said. Imperfect means alive, Amy replied. It means there's always room to get better, to try new things, to surprise yourself. The meeting continued for hours. The Zephyrians asked endless questions about human decision-making, about how humans chose between efficiency and other values, about how humans dealt with uncertainty and incomplete information. When you do not know the optimal solution, one Zephyrian asked, how do you decide what to do? We guess, Steve said. We try something that seems reasonable and see if it works. If it doesn't, we try something else. But guessing is inefficient. Sure, Steve agreed, but it's fast. And sometimes fast and good enough beats slow and perfect. As the discussion continued, Jake began to notice changes in the Zephyrians. They seemed more animated, more curious. They asked follow-up questions instead of just recording data. They even seemed to disagree with each other occasionally, which was something Jake had never seen before. Coordinator, Jake said, can I ask you something? In all your millions of years of optimization, have you ever been surprised? Have you ever discovered something you weren't looking for? Or felt joy at an unexpected success? The coordinator was quiet for a very long time. No, it said finally. We eliminated surprise 2.1 million years ago. It was inefficient. Do you miss it? We cannot miss something we do not remember. But do you think you might want to remember? Another long pause. We are curious about this possibility. By the end of the meeting, something fundamental had changed. The Zephyrians were no longer looking at humans as a species to be fixed or optimized. They were looking at humans as teachers. We would like to make a request, the coordinator said. As the meeting ended, what's that? Jake asked. We would like to send observers to human worlds, not to study your inefficiencies, but to learn from them. We wish to understand this practical sense that allowed you to succeed where our perfect calculations failed. You want to learn to be imperfect? Lisa asked. We want to learn to be adaptive, the coordinator replied. We want to understand how to find good solutions quickly, instead of perfect solutions slowly. We want to learn how do you say, get think outside the box. That, Jake said with a smile, we can definitely teach you. The story ended not with the Zephyrians becoming human, but with them becoming something new, a species that combined their vast knowledge and computational power with human-style creativity and adaptability. They learned to value questions as much as answers, to see inefficiency as potential rather than waste, and to understand that sometimes the best soul